Going live. And we're live. Hello, folks there. Just realised it was 10 o'clock. Oh, and you know what? Sorry, give me 1 wee second. I have to get right back to you. 1 wee second. Sorry about that. Forget my head if it wasn't screwed on. Pardon me, folks. Sorry about that. It's 10 o'clock. I will say hello. Hi, folks. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight we've got a double chapter of our Children of Dune book club for you. We're heading well on our way to the end. It won't be long now. So we're going to hit chapter 60 and 61. And I'm just getting my paperweights organized as always. And interestingly enough, tonight, at the end of chapter 60, that's another notebook filled, folks. There we go. Have to colour in the wee picture at the end as usual. So this will be the third of these big notebooks that we filled up with notes on Children of Dune. They kind of double up as well, how would you put it? It's not quite script, but something similar, I suppose. Help keep me right. Excuse me. Which means as of tonight, we're on to our fourth notebook, Children of Dune, Book Club Volume 4, for chapter 61. So there's Carlos saying hello. Hey Doc, how you doing, Carlos? How you doing? Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you can hear me okay. Pardon me, a little bit of a frog in my throat. Just as we start, I expect these two chapters to go quite quick tonight. They're action. The first one's an action driver, if you like. The second one's a tension driver, but essentially both of them are pushing all our pieces together towards the final conclusion of our plot within the story. So after tonight, we'll have 60 and 61 done tonight. Pardon me. Next week then is going to be chapter 62, which is actually pretty much that big conclusion that we're going to get. 63 will be following. That's a 6-page chapter, and then we have our final chapter, which is 10 pages. But next week's going to be pretty much one of the biggies, if you like. The Dune series tends to be a little bit anticlimactical in some ways. It tends to get its big finales out just a little bit too early, but there's a reason for it. So looking forward to that. Next, that's going to be a fair bit of work for next week. That's going to be a very, very interesting chapter where a lot of things are brought to a head. There's Julian Thompson saying hi Doc, hi all, and there's Cynthia saying hi Doc and all. Hello folks, how you doing, Julian? Hi Cynthia. Thanks very much for joining us. Autumn's well on its way in here at the minute. The weather's appalling. Very grey and kind of the sky is very kind of staticky. And of course, it's getting a lot darker a lot earlier, which I don't like. But yeah, it's been a week, hasn't it, folks? It's been a very interesting week, very strange week. All sorts on the news. I've been having all sorts of issues with students commenting on such things, you know. Pardon me. But yes, indeed, I think this one will go quickly tonight. They're short, snappy chapters. And in fact, I will confess, by the way, folks, I haven't been reading ahead. But when I got to the end of chapter 61, kind of knowing what was coming, I decided that's it. I am going to jump ahead now and finish the book. So I have read a few chapters ahead now and completed it. Which I suppose, yeah. And it's pretty much as I remembered, I think. The main thing the reason why I did it was the main reason why I did it was I could not remember what happened to Buer Agarves' character. So I was kind of interested in that, and that's why I pushed on through. But it was only a couple more to go, so I made it to the end. But here we go. Let's get running, folks. Epigraph number 60. Church and state, scientific reason and faith, the individual and his community, even progress and tradition. All of these can be reconciled in the teachings of Muad'Dib. He taught us that there exist no intransigent opposites except in the beliefs of men. Anyone can rip aside the veil of time. You can discover the future in the past or in your own imagination. Doing this, you win back your consciousness in your inner being. You know then that the universe is a coherent whole and you're indivisible from it. This is the preacher at Arrakeen after Hark al-Ada. Pardon me. So we have a whole bunch of pairings there, if you like, that are not necessarily opposites, but are considered that. Pardon me, the church and state, scientific reason and faith, individual and community, progress and tradition. All of these things can be reconciled in the teachings of Muad'Dib. He taught us that there exist no intransigent opposites except in the beliefs of men. So it's a funny statement that it begins kind of with an absolute, and then provides us with an exception to that absolute, if you like. Intransigent means unwilling to change, if you like, unyielding. So he sees a lot of these things as opposites, I think, as well. But there are no intransigent opposites except in the beliefs of men. Okay. Anyone can rip aside the veil of time. You can discover the future in the past or in your own imagination. And then we're told, doing this, you win back your consciousness and your inner being. You know then that the universe is a coherent whole and you're indivisible from it. So, a little bit paradoxical, that in some ways. But it's an interesting little state of affairs, isn't it? Julian Thompson said, Paul in self-commentary is unusual. Paired opposites define your longings, and those longings imprison you. The Zen Sunni whip. Very good, Julian. Thank you. I don't necessarily see the paired opposites that we have here aren't necessarily opposites. Church and state are not necessarily opposite things. Scientific reason and faith. I don't equate faith with religion. I think you can have faith and scientific reason at the same time. It's the way the word is used. Individual and the community, fair enough. Progress and tradition, I wouldn't necessarily say are opposites either. But all of these things, I think he's kind of going with the kind of idea of the Shakespearean dichotomies, this kind of idea. What do you despise by this? You're truly known. Manual of Muad'Dib, says Joe. Yes, indeed. This lesson of the opposites is one that takes a long time for the Bene Gesserit to internalize. It takes more and eventual unity with the honored Matres. That the universe is a coherent whole and you're indivisible from it, except in your imagination. If you see what I mean. Except in the beliefs of man. But yeah, the beliefs of man are all though in many ways, aren't they? Anyone can rip aside the veil of time. You can discover the future in the past or in your own imagination. Yes. I mean, if we consider time travel stories before, I suppose, well, really before the time machine, if you like, but many of those kind of stories are the sleeper shall awaken kind of thing. If somebody falls asleep and wakes up in the future, it was often the main way of getting to the future was by dreaming or sleeping. Oh dear. But yes, that's a very good point, Julian. Thank you. The lesson of opposites is one that takes a long time for the Bene Gesserit to internalize. It takes more and eventual unity with the honored Matres. Yeah. I think the other thing is with the Bene Gesserit as well is I don't know, but I haven't really think about this stuff at the moment. How would I put it? The problem for the Bene Gesserit, I suppose, one of the things that's hinted at is that if they didn't realize that their own evolution was not standing still. If you see what I mean, um, I'll have to put that. I'll have to put my thoughts into a more sort of coherent kind of form on that. But I've been watching some of the DVDs and kind of having a think about some stuff at the minute, and don't quite have it in my head. If you see what I mean. But it was in part to do with the Bene Gesserit's plan not really being their plan. What's going on? The fact that they seem to forget that they don't stand still in the whole general scheme of things. But yes, indeed, it's an interesting little epigraph. Of course, this is the preacher at Arrakeen. The next, the next. I suppose. Well, we're not going to, but we're ultimately going to get him to go preaching one more time, aren't we? I think. Okay. So, right, here we go, folks. Ghanima sat far back outside the circle of light from the spice lamps and watched this Buer Agarves. She didn't like his round face and agitated eyebrows, his way of moving his feet when he spoke, as though his words were a hidden music to which he danced. And we get Ghanima's thoughts here. He's not here to parley with Still, Ghanima told herself, saying this confined in every word and movement. Every word and movement from this man. She moved farther back away from the council's circle. I was making my notes as I went here, so I was kind of going, so what's he doing here, basically? And I've also put that his feet shuffling was a sign of nervousness. So every siege had a room like this one, but the meeting hall of the abandoned Jeddah struck Ghanima as a cramped place because it was so low. 60 people from Stilgar's band, plus the 9 who'd come with the Agarves, filled only one end of the hall. Spice oil lamps reflected against low beams which supported the ceiling. The light cast wavering shadows which danced on the walls, and the pungent smoke filled the place with the smell of cinnamon. The meeting had started at dusk after the moisture prayers and evening meal. It had been going on for an hour now, and Ghanima couldn't fathom the hidden currents in Agarves' performance. His words appeared clear enough, but his motions and eye movements didn't agree. Aha! So I have scribbled next to this. Excuse me a wee second, just grab some pens here. This is an act. There's theatre involved here, and certainly from within the story's point of view, Ghanima's kind of generally bang on about things, isn't she? So we should probably take her word for it from our own point of view. There's something not right going on here. Agarves was speaking now, responding to a question from one of Stilgar's lieutenants, a niece of Haraz named Rajia. She was a darkly aesthetic young woman whose mouth turned down at the corners, giving her an air of perpetual distrust. Ghanima found the expression satisfying in the circumstances. It's a nice little bit of writing there, I think. Rajya, I think from the Sanskrit, same word that we get Raj from is to rule, govern, state, etc. is the female form of that name. To be content as well, I think. Yeah, I really like the little bit of writing there. The description of Raja. She was a darkly aesthetic young woman whose mouth turned down at the corners, giving her an air of perpetual distrust. Ghanima found the expression satisfying in the circumstances. I really like that. I'm one of those people that have a kind of slightly natural downturn of the mouth. Just to bug the hell out of me. People used to be telling me always to smile, and I used to have to exaggerate. That's but it's not that I was ever unhappy. It's one of the reasons I used to start humming a lot. It's because I had a kind of a what do you call it? Sort of like a tinnitus thing in my ear. And I used to always just to kind of put a wee tune to it, so people always think I was very happy because I was always humming a wee tune, which was a great improvement on people telling me to smile because I kind of had a frownish kind of mouth. There you go. So they said, Julian, do you think that the preacher is describing what Paul used to teach, or might be infusing some of his current thought into his presentation of his legacy? Julian saying, Cynthia, I guess the latter. Paul seems like he's in futile damage control. Pardon me. I think he just has to go along with the flow of it, pretty much. We get a few hints at that in the next chapter on Leto and Paul have a natter, don't we? Excuse me, folks, but I'm feeling a wee bit bunged up today. Feeling very nasal. I hope I don't sound too bad. Julian said, even before his exile, Paul's epigraphs are the screaming of a man trapped by power in his own myth, begging us to see through him. Yeah, just chat. I'm wondering, is this again? I read through it there once very quickly. I'm just wondering, is this a bit of a share of what's to come in his final speech again after Har Galadan, whatever that means. Obviously, this again, we always have sort of suggested that we treat all of this kind of thing as Atreides propaganda, or someone's propaganda, if you like, the historians and so on, you know. Screaming of a man, that's a good way of describing trapped by power in his own myth, begging us to see through him, to try and break down his own myth, to try and destroy it. The idea of Muad'Dib as a god. Now he's at this point, as was the previous epigraph, Julian, he was disinherited. He spoke now for the disinherited of all time, against the profound injustice which alienates the individual from that which he was taught to believe, from that which seemed to come to him as a right. We have the individual back in here in this one of our little dichotomies, isn't it? The individual and his community. Universe as a whole, and you're indivisible from it. You're not separate. Preacher Arrakeen, is that about, again, is that a comment about himself? Is it the realization that no matter what he did? Is it a comment, perhaps, as we were saying, suggesting for the Bene Gesserit in the future? You know, who knows? Those are good questions, guys. There's Flaccid House saying, evening all, hope you're well, Doc. I'm good, Flaccid House. I'm a wee bit bunged up. It's just that time of year, I think, but I was blowing my nose left, right, and centre just before I came on. Object Grease going, yo, what's up, Doc? And Rolando Sada saying, howdy, Doc. Greetings, folks. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining us. We're just chilling on the Thursday evening with our book club, trying to make sure we get through them each week at this point, because it's the end is in sight, isn't it, folks? Pardon me. As much as we have two quite little punchy chapters here, the following three chapters I'm really looking forward to. They're going to be very interesting. You know, but all is good with me otherwise, folks. And I hope everything's all well with you. Something said, Julian agreed. The phrase win back your consciousness in your inner being sounds like he's reconciling some of his own prescient experiences with what Leto explored in controlling his inner lives. Yeah. So I was just kind of wondering, it almost feels like how would I put it? I kind of, yeah, it almost feels a bit, just having listened to your conversation, a wee bit like it's a, how would we put it? It's like a conversation. It's a warning or a suggestion almost for the Bene Gesserit in the future. I think I don't know where my mind's going there. You know. Julian saying Paul's deconstruction of his myth only reinforces it. Oh yes, great leader. Thank you for teaching us how to think for ourselves. We'll follow you. Tell us more. Yes. You're all individuals. Oh, what? That's how Monty Python put it. You know, what was it? He tells them all to fuck off, and then they go, "How shall we fuck off?" Yes, indeed. I mean, they've run with that part of Paul's character Julian in Denis Villeneuve's film. Very much they run with that idea that the denial of the I'm not the Messiah is see he would deny it. You know, this kind of thing, which is part of the twisted logic of the myths, I think, in some ways. Hmm. So yes, indeed. Let's see our Ghanima's thoughts there. Not trusting this Buer Agarves. Uh, he's not here to party with Stel. So that's her thoughts. She's telling herself that he's not here to talk. So what is he here for? Um, Seeing this confined in every word and movement. It's not confined. From this man, she moved further back away from the council's circle. That was confirmed, wasn't it? Sorry, hang on. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, confirmed in every word. That makes more sense. Excuse me. Ooh. Wait, Daddy Longlegs has just joined me on my keyboard. Hello. Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, there we go. Hello. Oh, I love these things. They're gorgeous. Oh, he's away. I have to make sure not to squish him on my book. Paul's Paul's deconstruction of his method only reinforces it. Oh yes, great leader. Thank you for teaching us how to think for ourselves, but follow you, tell us more. Johnson, Cynthia, great suggestion. Makes me consider how Leto's journals deconstruct language and make it a manifestation of the inner world. And Andre agreed, saying it wasn't the Troubles, it was a very naughty war. Graffiti in Belfast a few years ago. Still waiting for something completely different. It wasn't the Troubles, it was a very naughty war. Very good. Mm. My favorite piece of graffiti. Graffiti is very interesting. I think fundamentally important to society. Roman graffiti is pretty good. But my favorite piece of graffiti ever is on a wall, and it says "Always think ahead." And they've run out of space for the D for "Always think ahead." That's my favorite piece of graffiti of all time. I love that. Don't see it often enough on walls. It's very funny. I used to have a book on graffiti when I was a kid. Mm. Yes, indeed, it wasn't the Troubles. It was a very not. Troubles is a great euphemism linguistically, isn't it? So, where are we? Let me see. We had a wee bit of a description every seat had. There's 60 of Stilgar's band remaining. 9 people have come with the Garves. Right, so the meeting had started at dusk after the moisture prayers and evening meal. Oh, sorry, I've read that as well, haven't we? Where do we get to? Oh yes, Ghanima found the expression satisfying in the circumstances. This is Raja's downturned smile. So this is Agarves here. Certainly, I believe Alia will grant a full and complete pardon to all of you. Agarves said, "I'd not be here with the message otherwise." Um, so I've drawn a big arrow and put the word belief there. It's a belief. It's not certain. Um, Stilgar intervened as Raja made to speak once more. I'm not as much worried about our trusting her as I'm about whether she trusts you. Stilgar's voice carried growling undertones. He was uncomfortable with the suggestion that he return to his old status. It doesn't matter whether she trusts me, Agarves said. To be candid about it, I don't believe she does. I've been too long searching for you without finding you, but I've always felt she didn't really want you captured. She was, and he's cut off here. She was the wife of the man I slew, Stilgar said. I grant you that he asked for it. Might as well have fallen on his own knife. But this new attitude smells of, and he's cut off here. Smells of what? I suppose is the thing we should be asking. Agarves danced, and the word danced there, to his feet, anger playing on his face. She forgives you. How many times must I say it? She had the priests make a great show of asking divine guidance from, and again, he's cut off here by Irulan. In fact, just very quickly to point off, almost every sentence, every time somebody talks within this chapter, they're interrupted or cut off. So here the cutoff is, you've only raised another issue. It's Irulan. It was Irulan leaning forward past Rajia, blonde head set off against Rajia's darkness. She has convinced you, but she may have other plans. The priesthood has, and he's cut off again, but there are all these stories, Irulan said, that you're more than just a military advisor, that you're her, and she's cut off again here. Enough! Agarves was beside himself with rage. His hand hovered near his knife. Warring emotions moved just below the surface of his skin, twisting his features. Believe what you will, but I cannot go on with that woman. She foils me. She dirties everything she touches. I am used. I am soiled. But I have not lifted my knife against my skin. Now, no more. Now, there's a fair bit to take in there. All these sentences being cut off, etc. First of all, the priests making a great show of asking divine guidance from who, it doesn't really matter, but the point is that's theatre again. Then we got what does just prior to that, what does Stilgar think this smells of? It's probably treachery, is what I would go with. This new attitude smells of. I just put smells of what, but I'm going to go with treachery. That pen is doomed. There we go. Treachery. So great show theatre. The other issue that Irulan raises basically, you might be convinced by it, but what if she does have other plans? What if she's using you? But all these stories basically that you're more than just a military advisor, that you're her. And whatever term you wish to use, he's her lover, her toy boy, her man whore, her boon companion is the one we would use, mythologically speaking, etc., etc. Her latest toy, the Baron's latest toy. Pretty insulting to Agarves to be seen this way. And his response, it's kind of funny in a way, the rage that comes out of it. I wasn't doing it justice there. We've got it's a Bangaria heaven, isn't it? Loads of exclamation marks. You really want the actor playing this part to really give it some welly. If he goes filthy, this kind of thing. She fouls me. She dirties everything she touches. I am used. I am soiled, but I have not lifted my knife against my skin. No more. Now, that's a clear reference, just that last little bit, to suicide. I'm pretty sure. So he's angry, he's been befouled, he's been sullied, etc., etc., debased by Alia the Baron, but he hasn't killed himself, is what we're being told here. And I don't know why. I get the sense that this kind of treatment at someone's hands amongst the Fremen would be seen as very, very shameful, if you see what I mean. Or certainly that Agarves has a sense of shame about it, Object Degree says, I'm getting 6 cans from Bradbury Graphics next week. The Tiger has awoken. Rolando Salas says, graffiti memes of the past. Yes, indeed. It's a good way of thinking about it. It's also, a great way for people to comment about their government. And it's been, graffiti has always been a response to power. In a time when we didn't have TV, radio, any kind of, town criers and that kind of thing. Object Degree said 100%. So they say my text says, but I have not lifted my knife against my kin. Oh, right. Well, here, hang on a minute. Now, that's an interesting one, Cynthia, because that massively changes the meaning of that, doesn't it? So let's have a wee nosy. Thank you very much. That's not a good one. Let me double check that this is not my sleepy mistake. First of all, skin. I've got skin for sure. Let me have a wee nosy and let's see. Thank you very much. Let me just have a wee nosy here. I'll get an e-copy. Open. Baba, go away, AI. There we go. Baba, 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 baba. Ho, 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 ho. Let me see. Fine. Yeah, Ken and my electronic version, which I think is a Berkeley. Yes, indeed. Well, that's interesting. Wow. I've got skin. Absolutely. Here in our copy. Let's see. There we go. Against my skin. Excellent. I don't know. What do you think? Which one makes more sense? Believe what you will, but I can't enough. Let me see. Backing up. Priesthood, blah, blah. You're more than just a military advisor, that you're her enough. Believe what you will, but I can't go on with that woman. She files me. She dirties everything she touches. I am used. I am soiled, but I have not lifted my knife against my kin. Now, no more. I mean, that makes a lot of sense as well. As much as what she's done to me, I haven't hurt any of my relatives. I haven't, attacked my own people, that kind of thing. Let's see, something's in the word kin reveals another level of Agarves' dilemma, his allegiance to Alia and his kinship with Stilgar. Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. I think it's kin, isn't it? It makes more sense. I could totally, for God's sake, I've made a note here. This is suicide question. That's right. Hang on a wee second. Let's see. Skin and UK Ken and Berkeley. Right, put a big circle around that against my kid. For a moment there, just because of the language that he's debased. Pardon me, that kind of thing. It almost thought that Skin. Pardon me, the idea that he was going to commit suicide, possibly because of this, made more sense. But no, it makes much more sense if that word is kin. And it changes my notes entirely here. So yes, indeed, what Cynthia's saying there, his allegiances to family, to Fremen, etc., are still intact. He hasn't done anything to demonstrate otherwise. But I have not lifted my knife against my kin. Yeah, no more. That's the end to it. I haven't hurt anybody here, so enough of that nonsense. And I'm not a happy bunny. Okay, basically is what he's saying. Right. That makes a lot more sense. It does. It confirms his allegiances here, or at least that his old allegiances aren't broken yet. Family, the tribe, the good of the tribe, that kind of thing. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, that's a howler. Um, it's interesting, isn't it? The way one letter can change something. And it's interesting that sometimes it won't really make any sense or make any major effect or change the story, and others that it can really make you perceive something in a very, very different way. Thank you very much, Cynthia. That was a good call. So I'll read that again, folks, with that fixed. Where are we? Enough. So I'll go back to Irulan. Sorry, but there are all these stories, Irulan said, that you're more than just a military advisor, that you're her. Enough. Agarves was beside himself with rage. His hand hovered near his knife. Warring emotions moved just below the surface of his skin, twisting his features. Believe what you will, but I cannot go on with that woman. She fouls me. She dirties everything she touches. I am used. I am soiled, but I have not lifted my knife against my kin. Now, no more. Ghanima, observing this thought, that, at least, was truth coming from him. Surprisingly, Stilgar broke into laughter. Cousin, he said, forgive me, but there's truth in anger. There's truth in a lot of things, isn't there? Then you agree. This is Agarves, which is a no. I've not said that. This is Stilgar. He raised a hand as Agarves threatened another outburst. It's not for my sake, Buer, but there are these others. He gestured around him. They are my responsibility. Let us consider for a moment what reparations Alia offers. Reparations? There's no word of reparations. Pardon, but no, and he's cut off here. Then what does she offer as surety of her word? Now, here we go. Sietch Tabr and you as Naib, full autonomy as a neutral. She understands now how I'll not go back to her entourage or provide her with fighting men, Stilgar warned. Is that understood? Now, just stopping there very quickly. Sietch Tabr, what Agarves is offering Stilgar here. Oh, sorry when I try to adjust my chair. Is nothing that he didn't have before. Sietch Tabr was his. So he gets Sietch Tabr. You as Naib, he was Naib. Full autonomy as a neutral. He had autonomy as a neutral. So it's nothing that wasn't really his. So there's not. I've just written there's nothing being offered but the previous status quo. The suggestion that the status quo would include Stilgar being part of her or being able to provide her with troops. If that's the change in it, then there is a change. But that's what Stilgar is saying here. He's not doing that. And Ghanima could hear Stilgar beginning to weaken and thought, no, still. No need for that, Agarves said. Alia wants only Ghanima returned to her and the carrying out of the betrothal promise which she... So now it comes out, Stilgar said, his brows drawing down. Ghanima's the price of my pardon. Does she think me... And he's cut off here, having cut off Agarves himself. She thinks you sensible, Agarves argued, resuming his seat. He preempts Stilgar there. Does she think me a fool would be the next word I think that comes out of Stilgar's mouth. Gleefully, Ghanima thought, he won't do it. Save your breath. He won't do it. And I think that's the point here is that I think Ghanima would be correct. Stilgar wouldn't sell out Ghanima for power or position. I don't think it would be within his character. As she thought of this, Ghanima heard a soft rustling behind and to her left. She started to turn, felt powerful hands grab her. A heavy rag, reeking of sleep drugs, covered her face before she could cry out. As consciousness faded, she felt herself being carried toward a door in the hall's darkest reaches. And she thought, I should have guessed. I should have been prepared. But the hands that held her were adult and strong. She could not squirm away from them. Ghanima's last sensory impression Oh, hang on, that's not quite right, is it? Let me see. It doesn't read well. I missed out a letter there, that's why. Ghanima's last sensory impressions were of cold night air, a glimpse of stars and a hooded face which looked down at her, then asked, "She wasn't injured, was she?" The answer was lost as the stars wheeled and streaked across her gaze, losing themselves in a blaze of light, which was the inner core of her selfdom. There we go, folks. That's the end of that chapter. Julian Thompson says, "I have coming out of him." Where's that? My text also has that. At least was truth coming out of him. Thank you. Sorry, just catching up with your comments, folks. Oh, right, hang on. That's after his. That at least was truth coming from him. Is that what I said? You have coming out of him. Bear with me a wee second, folks. Blah, 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 blah. Good chapter. That at least was truth. So you guys have got that at least was truth coming out of him. I can confirm I've got that at least was truth coming from him in mine. Yeah. Overlapping that last one. There we go. We can get it to hold still for a moment. There we are. Truth coming from him. That's cool. What you guys have? Dear, there's always something, isn't there? That's not too bad. Truth coming out of him. I'll put a wee bracket here. Out of. On the Berkeley. Thank you very much. That one there, that's inoffensive, isn't it? That's the kind of mistakes we can forgive. Okay. Oops. I nearly hit something there with my mouse. With the kin and the skin one, that really did me thinking, what's going on there? But it makes a lot more sense with kin, especially in terms of the negotiations. I've actually scribbled down this at the end of this chapter. Kind of how realistic is this? And I've written seems not very. And this was before I read on, by the way. So I've obviously with Ghanima being kidnapped here, I wrote there would be severe consequences of betraying a party, or even rules of hospitality, that kind of thing amongst the Fremen here. But yes, indeed, there is treachery at hand. There's theatre here, and we're kind of pretty much told. She's convinced you, but she may have other plans. So other plans are at work within this chapter, and that we'll find out will be the work of Alia there. Excuse me. Now at that point, folks, there we go. I've hit the end of my book. I have to color on the wee page. So that is volume 3 of notes completed. Let's see, just to have a wee quick flick through. So we've got 3 of these books filled. This one's oh, hey. Complete with occasional doodles and illustrations, etc. It's that kind of thing. But they're incredibly useful to us. And we do sort of jump back and refer to these as we go. I'm not very good at art, by the way, but I love doodling. I'm very much a wee sort of stick man kind of guy. But yeah, indeed, that's our 3rd volume finished, folks. On to for our next chapter, chapter 61, we have to start another notebook. So hopefully this one will be the last. We'll have 4 of these notebooks that will take us to the end of the book club. So let me plonk that one down there. I suppose I'll have to get something written on the spine, but this is, here we are. Over here. Let's see, can we see that then there? There we are. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. On to notebook number 10 in our 3rd year. I think, are we into year 4? Possibly now. I don't know how long we've been at this now. But I'll catch up with your titles. I'll get a sip and a wee smoke here before we get on with the next chapter, which is a good one, actually. Another wee short one, but a very good one. Chapter 61. Atreides is saying, hi Atreides, I love how Frank shows how taboos are challenged throughout the journey of the Fremen. Dealing with the Atreides brought challenge on Arrakis. And Dune Thompson says, I tend to note the word impression in every Dune text. Oftentimes the writing is suggested to be impressionistic itself. Okie doke, yeah. Impression. We've got our, okay, what have we got? Prescient vision. Suggested to be impressionistic itself. When you mean the writing, are you talking about Frank's writing there, Julian, or the writing of the epigraphs? When you meant every Dune text, are you talking about the books? Yeah. I get a real sense of. I'll tell you what I get from Frank's writing, by the way, because it's one of the things I've been kind of curious about this time. Having looked at the Dune series in different ways, in a few different ways, the way I kind of thought I'd approach the book club that would be most useful to us would be through the words, the language, the word craft of the author, if you like. And there's lots of things that Frank does really well. I'm just saying that there's a nice wee touch in that previous chapter there. Some of his writing's really good. The interesting thing within the Dune series, the first 3 Dune books, is that we know that some of this stuff was written around. Parts of the 3 books were written at the same time, way back. And it's interesting to see, can you pick up bits that were kind of, can you get where it was written around 1965? What was written where? Where's the later writer, if you know what I mean? Where's the more evolved writer in the book? But what I have I have a huge problem with. There's a few things I noticed he sort of evolved into, started doing. One was he changed how he uses colons a lot. There's a real problem with how you switch between characters' thoughts and you're talking about impressions, Julian, the sense that you get of knowing something from the third person omniscient narrator. And it's partly to do with stylizations within the text, if you see what I mean. That we can go from sort of thought that's clearly in italics to the continuation of that thought, which is not in italics. It's not the character having that thought. It's actually being presented to you by the narrator. But syntax I think Frank's got a bit of a problem with syntax sometimes, and I'm not actually sure it is a problem. I think it's a very deliberate. I think it's a stylization. And the other one is there's a lot of times that there are kind of reeks. Frank, a lot of his writing has a wee bit of a reek of general semantics about it now and then, I think, as well. Impressionistic. I'm trying to get a sense of what you mean by that. Impressionists. General feeling of something. Yeah, I got that. I thought we were going to talk about a movement or something there. Impression is something rather than providing specific details. Yeah. I'm overcomplicating it. Object degree saying, well, I have Yadog. I've got an Instagram now, same handle. Have a guitar, little recent post. It's a rough cut pre-studio. Was able to work on Eno's prophecy thing, very 80s, that kicks in 6 minutes. Very good. I still haven't got my guitar strung yet. Oh, I'm gonna have to do it this weekend. Just hurt my left hand hurts like hell whenever I try to do it. Mickey said, "Hi, what do you think about books written by Brian Herbert? Anyone's in particular? Mickey, I think we've got sitting here, Dreamer of June. I actually got a bit tidying up there. Where did I put it? Brian's biography of his father. Here we go. I wouldn't have. So of Brian Herbert's books, I wouldn't have read too many. I've run through the various Dune books that he's done: Road to June and Dreamer of June. That's it there, Dreamer of June. That's the biography of his father, and it's a decent old read. It's a good, insightful book. It's well written. Um, how many pages does that come to? Yeah, it's over 560 pages in hardback there. And we have, I suppose, the most famous one amongst Man of Two Worlds with Frank. But the ones of the Dune books, I suppose, which are that I've read would be House Atreides, House Harkonnen, House Carino, Hunters of Dune, and what's the other one? Sandworms of Dune. I suppose there's the Road to Dune as well when we're there. So on the whole, those things they're reasonably well written. There's nothing particularly bad about the man's craft or anything like that. As in terms of what the Herbert estate has done with the Dune books, I think we were commenting enough that they're within this series of book clubs that the books themselves are in very sorry shape, almost to the point of literary embarrassment. But in relation to what he's done with the stories, I'm not a fan of it at all. Oh goodness, ladies, behave. And it's for a number of reasons, you know. But basically, the main one is that it detracts from his father's work. And I suppose the best way to put it, in terms of that Frank would understand, is that it creates positive feedback loops within his own father's work, and it changes the story. It's detrimental to the story, that kind of thing. And it just doesn't feel right. That's all. But it's. I've often said that it's a very very. There are writers who attempt to write in other writers' voices. If you see what I mean, there's people who've written Sherlock Holmes stories, people who've written James Bond stories, Conan the Barbarian stories, that this kind of thing. And those that are very good at it do it where they're really imitating the authorial voice, is what I would call it, if you like. Well, there's a real reverence for it, and it's you don't get the sense of that with the Herbert family and the churning out of these books, I suppose. But I think the last one that they put out with Kevin that he put out with Kevin J. Anderson, one way of thinking about it is that it was put. I think they wrote it in 30 days, whereas Dune took five odd 6 years to write. You know? So I don't hate them or anything like that, but I don't consider them canon. And I suppose, in terms of what the family's estate did, the one thing that I really don't like, what that they did was the shutting down, if you like, of the Dune Encyclopedia. I consider that an act of literary assassination. But we've had a wee bit of a natter on here before about how different estates treat works like this, and a really good example, Mickey, is to have a look at. You know, you can compare Dune to the Lord of the Rings, so you can also compare the treatment of the Dune series, to the treatment of the Lord of the Rings and the Middle Earth properties, if you like, to Tolkien's work by their respective estates, if you like, and one certainly with the work of Christopher Tolkien on his father's work is exceptional, and highly respectful and award-winning, and you couldn't praise it enough. And unfortunately, it seems to be the exact opposite with the Dune series. Um, you know, but even conspiracy theories about it. What's that about, Mickey? The conspiracy theories? Is that with? Oh, have I missed something here? I don't think I read your thing quite right. Object degree. I just hang on. I've got an Instagram now. Same handle. Have a guitar noodle recent post. It's a rough cut pre-studio. Was able to work in Eno's prophecy theme. Da, 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 da. Yes. Very 80s that kicks in 6 months. Excellent. This is caught Eno's prophecy theme. It hadn't registered with me object degree. Sorry, the first time I was reading it there. So it's interesting that Ghanima was not ready for the drugged attack when she has Jessica's memories of this same trick. Her previous tension with Stilgar and involvement in this decision here dulled her. Yeah, I'm wondering, is it partly because, as you were saying, something that's interesting that Ghanima was not ready for the drugged attack when she has Jessica's memories of the same trick. Her previous tension with Stilgar and involvement in this decision here dulled her. Is it possibly something to do with the fact that a lot of those the suggestion, the hypnosis that Ghanima is under, has that in some way suppressed those minds? I think it's possible that's got some. But yeah, when I said I didn't think it was just before we go on, that I didn't think it seemed very realistic. What I meant by that was I didn't think that Ghanima's kidnappers could get close to her without the. She didn't seem to be that far away from Stilgar. That, I don't know. It seemed very easy. And I suppose we'll get to it when we get to it. As I said, I've read ahead and understand it. Sorry about that. But it was an interesting thing. But yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. Again, it's often the question when you come to these characters is how did that happen? And I think one of the things that we have to remember, Cynthia, that Frank likes to teach us is that no matter what, all of these characters are amazing. They have superhuman abilities. They're mental and physical, but they're all very human at the same time. Something to have a natter about that when we get to it, actually. But the transition from having human protagonists to having a non-human protagonist would actually shift the tone, if you like, of the entire series when we get to the God Emperor. Tensions, but yes, tension. That was the time. I'm getting growled at here. You all right, ladies? Sorry. Previous tension was still going involved in his decision here. Dulled her. Yes, indeed. Something just, yeah. It's interesting. I just thought it was easy. It was too easy. So on to our new book club. I haven't got my chapter coloured in yet. I might do it as we go. But I've noticed every time I scribble something like that, the table wobbles, so I'll maybe not do it too much. But again, this is a short little chapter. I think the end of this is more interesting. We get a sort of kind of Leto's thoughts for a bit in chapter 61, and then we have a sort of conversation as a let's go kind of thing with Leto and Paul, in the sense that Paul's dead, I suppose, as well. Here we go. Here's epigraph number 61, folks. Muad'Dib gave us a particular kind of knowledge about prophetic insight, about the behavior which surrounds such insight, and its influence upon events which are seen to be online. That is, events are set to occur in a related system which the prophet reveals and interpreted. As has been noted elsewhere, such insight operates as a peculiar trap for the prophet himself. He can become the victim of what he knows, which is a relatively common human feeling. The danger is that those who predict real events may overlook the polarizing effect brought about by overindulgence in their own truth. They tend to forget that nothing in a polarized universe can exist without its opposite being present. This is the prescient vision by Hark al-Ada. Nothing can exist without its opposite being present. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This kind of thing. It is an interesting thing. Let's have a wee look at it again. I'm going to grab my purple highlighter here. Let's see, it's nearly out of ink. Muad'Dib gives us a particular kind of knowledge about prophetic insight, about the behavior of such insights and its influence on events which are seen to be online. It's an interesting term here, isn't it? Um, that is, events are set to occur in a related system, which the prophet reveals and interprets. Okay, so basically, Muad'Dib lets us know about seeing the future, what happens if you know the future, and how you can influence people by knowing the future. And what we mean by that upon events which are seen to be online, what do we mean by that? He tells us that is events that are set to occur in a related system, which the prophet reveals and interprets. As has been noticed elsewhere, such insight operates as a peculiar trap for the prophet. So it's almost that the future, the way I get the description here is in kind of systems language, is that we have one system which the prophet connects to, if you like. Um, Everyone else is separate from that system, an outside entity in a sense. And for that system to interact with the people, it has to be through the prophet, if you like. It's through their what they reveal and what they interpret from this system, whatever that may be. As has been noted elsewhere, such insight operates as a peculiar trap for the prophet. Okay, what's the nature of the trap? He can become the victim of what he knows, which is a relatively common human feeling. So yeah, you can know stuff that can ruin things for you. Does that make sense? Somebody takes the magic away. It's that kind of thing. The relatively common human feeling. It happens to us all. A little bit of too much knowledge, or trying to be, or it's like ruining. Maybe we could ruin a film by telling people the ending. This kind of thing. Just at a very simple level. We've all experienced it. The danger is that those who predict real events may overlook the polarizing effect brought about by overindulgence in their own truth. So they tend to forget that nothing in a polarized universe can exist without its opposite being present. So you predict something. The danger that is that you overlook what kind of effect that this knowledge will have on people, on society, people with the common human feelings. It will polarize them. It will set them for or against, black or white, yes or no. And if you think that I suppose the way I run with this epigraph on the prescient vision, if you like, is that I suppose the overindulgence in their own truth and the certainty that the future is going to happen, that's one particular thing. And if you call that future a good future, you have to understand that with the good will come the bad. If you create a future that's bad, you have to understand that with the bad future will come the good. Does that make sense? That's how I read it. And that this is the person who interprets this, if you like, the prophetic insight. So it's an interesting way what the prophet reveals. They've kind of put it into kind of layman's terms, if you like, the way that we all do it. Yeah, every action has its equal and opposite reaction. Oh dear, that's a hefty one, and that's the prescient vision, by the way, by Hark al-Ada. Julian's saying, the relationship between subject and object is at play in this epigraph. The related system can be the coherent whole or the undifferentiated. Suchness, perhaps. The lack of subject-object. Online is all. I almost took that as linear. In a related system. I mean, it's also the language is vague. What system? What is he talking about? Whatever it happens to be, that the prophet reveals and interprets is that system. Or it's events that occur in that system are the things that the prophet reveals and interprets. Yeah, it's a bizarre way. The prophecy. I suppose it's a systemic way of looking at prophecy, isn't it? In a weird kind of way. Being the victim of what he knows makes him part of that system, I suppose, as well. Knowing implies knower and known. Mm. You can know all sorts of things, but they can also be absolute nonsense. Mm. Yeah, knowing is knowing what? Knowing the truth, knowing lies, knowing, yeah, knowing implies knower and known. Quite right, Julian. Hmm. So I suppose the prescient vision within this chapter, we're going to have a wee bit of a matter about the visions ahead. And I suppose the interesting thing about the related systems here, etc., is it, what's the term we're going to use in this chapter? I think it's called vision management. um, which is interesting. It's almost starting to make the thing sound a little bit bureaucratic to me. Um, Atreides says you aren't thinking or really existing unless you're willing to risk even your own sanity in the judgment of your existence. Hmm. Yeah. Who said that, Atreides? You've got quote marks around it. Yeah, it's a the old unexamined life is not worth living kind of thing. But to have a good hard look at yourself is an interesting thing, and it can be a risky thing, but it's always, I think, a worthwhile thing to do. You know, and it's I think it's something you should do periodically. Just sit down, and go right. What are you at? What am I up to? Am I behaving myself? This kind of thing. How's life going in general? Now, let's have a wee look. So this one will go again quite quickly, I think, folks. Once we hit the dialogue between the two, I'll maybe do a little bit of colouring in as we go here. At the very least, we'll just do the wee bits here. Let's see. Right. Blowing sand hung like fog on the horizon, obscuring the rising sun. The sand was cold in the Dune shadows. Leto stood outside the ring of palm rays looking into the desert. He smelled dust and the aroma of spiny plants, heard the morning sounds of people and animals. The Fremen maintained no quiet in, I've got his place here, but I think it should say this place. It's our first possible little mistake there. Nothing major. Um, they had only a bare minimum of hand planting. Uh, yeah, I think I've got problems with this chapter. This one might not flow too well. Let me grab a pen. Uh, he smelled dust and aroma of spiny plants, heard the morning sounds of people and animals. Right. The Fremen maintained no quiet in, I think it's this place. Atreides saying apologies. Pretty sure that was in the early pages of Children of Dune. No worries, Atreides. No need to apologize. I was just curious where it came from. Well, we talked about this a wee bit. Thank you very much, Cynthia. My text has this place. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. Oh well, that's just being very possessive. Thank you, Atreides. Sorry. Yeah. No. We also get what's called Dune drift. I suppose that there's that much to look at as we go through these things that we do start to tend to forget the odd thing, which is interesting. We've had a natter about it. It's one of the reasons why we're doing the book clubs. If we do forget, or we do the notebook. Sorry, if we do forget something, or we can jump back. But no, thank you. It's just if you've got a wee quote, I'll ask where it comes from. But my old brain sometimes is a wee bit tired and a wee bit done in with all of this. Atreides, it's not always as nimble as I'd like it to be. Yeah, this place. June Thompson, it's a good quote. To exist is to stand out against the background. Mm. Oh, that was something. You just reminded me of something. Oh, I realized. Oh, books that are missing. Books that are missing. Is it missing? I think it is. I've just realized. Yeah, Algebraist is there. You just made me realise it's that your words, Julian, that my copy of Against the Dark Background is missing, which is one of Ian M. Banks's non-culture novel, science fiction novels. That was pretty good. Yeah, I was just kind of trying to figure it. I always kind of have what books have I lost in that big book disaster, and it's occasionally you don't realise. Oh, you think you have a book and then you realise it's gone. But that's one of them. I was just realising because he's all there, and I don't think Against the Dark Background is there at all. Which is sadness. Algebraist is there. Algebraist is a very good one. Sorry, I'm jumping away there. So in this place, yes, they had only a bare minimum of hand. Now, bear with me. This was reading very badly here. They had only a bare minimum of hand planting irrigated by the women. Planting irrigated by the women, right? That's fine. Who carried water in skin bags. Now, I don't know. It doesn't really flow right to me. They had only a bare minimum of hand planting irrigated by the women who carried water in skin bags. Probably hand plantings. I'm wondering. Oh, something's happened there. That's why I can't find that on the desktop because it's gone. Bear with me a second. Forever maintained no quantity in this place. They had only a bare minimum of hand planting irrigated by the women who carried water in skin bags. Okay, that's the online version that I have there. So it seems to be the same text reads the same as yours. Yeah, I just don't think it flows very well. Only had a bare minimum of hand plant. I would suggest that planting, the word planting should be a plural. Possibly, but yeah. Anyway, not to worry. Their wind trap was a fragile thing, easily destroyed by the storm winds, but easily rebuilt. Hardship, the rigors of the spice trade, and adventure were a way of life here. These Fremen still believed heaven was the sound of running water, but they cherished an ancient concept of freedom, which Leto shared. And we get Leto's thoughts here. Freedom is a lonely state, he thought. Leto adjusted the folds of the white robe which covered his living still suit. He could feel how the I'll read that again. He could feel how the sand-trout membrane had changed him, and as always with his feeling, hang on, I will just check that again. He was forced to overcome a deep sense of loss. As always with this feeling, he was forced to overcome a deep sense of loss. Sorry. He no longer was completely human. There we go. Odd things swam in his blood. Sand-trout cilia had penetrated every organ, adjusting, changing. The sand-trout itself was changing, adapting. But Leto, knowing this, felt himself torn by the old threads of his lost humanity, his life caught in primal anguish with its ancient continuity shattered. He knew the trap in indulging in such emotion, though he knew it well. Let the future happen of itself, he thought. The only rule governing creativity is the act of creation itself. There we go. So we are getting some of his thoughts. Freedom is a lonely state, first of all. I think the loneliness of Leto is something that the solitude of his position in history is a place for our sympathy, if you like. His deep sense of loss. He's not human anymore. He is no longer completely human. And the cilia, those kind of little furry kind of things, little creeper bits, if you like, they've penetrated every part of his body, into his organs, into his skin, into everything, basically. He's changed, adapted. The sandworm has changed and adapted as well. And if I'm not mistaken, basically what all of this is doing is it's making him a kind of I don't know. I suppose I was a character I'm thinking of from 2000 AD. Was it Mad George? He's a bit like Mad George. He's kind of nodal, if you like. That even his brain won't be in one place. That kind of thing. Let the future happen of itself. The only rule governing creativity is the act of creation itself. So it's kind of very much a sort of laissez-faire kind of thing, isn't it? Just let it happen. The white robe would symbolize death and imperialism as well, and purity, if you like. If we move into that, you could even take it that he is the virgin. He's a virgin emperor, isn't he, as well? If you like, all those things that the white robe might represent. In the Dune books, it's usually death. So he's torn, he's a bit upset. Deep sense of loss, torn between the old threads of his lost humanity. His life caught in primal anguish with its ancient continuity shattered. He knew the trap in indulging in such emotions, though he knew it well. So I suppose the whole point is he can't be too he can't be too caught up in his own problems, can he? He's got to own his own shit. Basically, I think is the sense of, or that will itself will cause severe problems for him. It was difficult to take his gaze away from the sands, the dunes, the great emptiness. Here at the edge of the sand lay a few rocks, but they led the imagination outward into the winds, the dust, the sparse and lonely plants and animals, dune emerging into dune, desert into desert. And here we go. Behind him came the sound of a flute playing for the morning prayer, the chant for moisture, which now was a subtly altered serenade to the new Shai Hulud. This knowledge in Leto's mind gave the music a sense of eternal loneliness. And we get that little bit of loneliness there, that little bit of a sense of, is it self-pity perhaps? Loneliness? Maybe not self-pity, just the isolation of his position. I think that would be more fair. So it's quite interesting what we have here. Is that this is the playing of the flute that summons people for morning prayer, and particularly the chant for moisture. And what's happened is that these Fremen here at Charlotte have altered the prayer. They've changed it. The ritual has been, we're told, subtly altered. And it's a subtly altered serenade to the new Shai Hulud, to Leto himself. So, just tying this in, I suppose, I think it's interesting to see is that if we were having an hour about Lord Raglan's ideas and beliefs, etc., how much Frank used a number of them within the books, but the main thing really is the 22 ritualistic steps. I think someone like Frank, if he read Raglan's, we were talking about reading it ourselves and just going, this is nonsense, you know. In some of that sense, this idea here that Frank has put in of the ritual being altered, if you like, that would suggest, I think, that he would think along those lines himself. It's not kind of Raglan-esque thinking, if you see what I mean. Here we have a ritual already exists. The myth does not yet, but we've got an alteration to it, to the new Shai Hulud. A new myth is born out of a ritual. But in this case, the ritual is born out of a ritual, and that the actions of the thing have already occurred, if that makes sense. So there's the story, the actions create the ritual, the original one. The new actions create the new ritual. Subtly altered serenade, almost like a love song to the new Shai Hulud. Pardon me. A prayer for moisture. The knowledge in Leto's mind gave the music a sense of eternal loneliness. So I'll just put change of the rituals, the change of the Fremen here, and it's change in terms of what's happened to Leto, the things that he's bringing about as part of his and Ghanima's plan. that this change has happened really fast. It's happened already. And again, we get some of Leto's thoughts here. I could just walk away into the desert, he thought. Now, that is his father's choice. One of the big things about Leto, I suppose, is that he is a critic of his father. And we're going to get a fair bit of that later on, I think, if I can remember correctly, in God Emperor of Dune. But we've had a little bit of it already, but we're going to get some more here, if you like. Everything. So I could just walk away into the desert, he thought. Everything would change then, as if things wouldn't change anyway. One direction would be as good as another. He had already learned to live a life free of possessions. He had refined the Fremen mystique to a terrible edge. Everything he took with him now was necessary, and that was all he took. But he carried nothing except the robe on his back, the Atreides hawk ring hidden in its folds, and the skin which was not his own. So he's very Spartan, isn't he? Nothing but the robe, the ring, and the skin that is not his own, which I suppose is his skin now. These three things. He has lived to learn lived. Sorry, he has learned to live free of possessions, and we're told that he's refined the Fremen mystique to a terrible edge. We go way back into Dune. We talk about the mystique. It's part of the lessons of Leto, isn't it? About building up the army of the Sardaukar. I think, as I recall, it's what makes them special. It's the mystique, this kind of thing. We've had the Sardaukar mystique. We've got the Fremen mystique. Sense of mystery. Belonging to a unique group that's cultivated this kind of thing. And it's to a terrible edge, we're told. So that's what he's got, this white robe, the Atreides hawk ring, and the skin which was not his own. Oddly enough, I suppose the white robe, the ring, the hawk, it's red, isn't it? I think. And the skin which is not his own, I believe, is grey, black, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure, must check that. So again, just walk away. One direction would be as good as any, and this is what he's learned to live, free of possessions. It doesn't matter. He doesn't need anything. What he's got is what he's got. It would be easy to walk away from here, and I've written next to that's a criticism of Paul. He views walking away from this problem as an easy thing. That's what Paul did. He walked away from it into the desert. Easy. No difficulty there. So movement high in the sky caught his attention. Display gap wingtips identified a vulture. The sight filled his chest with aching. Like the wild Fremen, vultures lived in this land because this was where they were born. They knew nothing better. The desert made them what they were. Now, this bit I've written down, this is what we call the reason why. Okay, so we're told another Fremen breed was coming up in the wake of Muad'Dib and Alia. Sorry, I'll read that again. Pardon me. Another Fremen breed was coming up in the wake of Muad'Dib and Alia, though. They were the reason he could not walk away into the desert as his father had done. Leto recalled Idaho's words from the early days. The Fremen, they're magnificently alive. I've never met a greedy Fremen. That was the Duncan Idaho speaking in the past. And the little comment here that follows is very interesting. And this is where we're heading with these things. There were plenty of greedy Fremen now. And that's very, very interesting. This sort of people, greed is not really a thing that we associate with the Fremen at all. And this is the words of Duncan Idaho, by the way. This is his assessment. It's his assessment that we get firsthand in the original Dune novel. The Fremen, they're magnificently alive. Alive. Never met a greedy Fremen. And there were plenty of greedy Fremen now. And I suppose the emotion that follows that here with Leto is the correct one. A wave of sadness passed over Leto. But this, just before we go on, this is his reason. This is what we're told now. Why doesn't he just, off I go, live my own happy life, do my thing in the desert, be a demigod, have some fun? Not worry about it. Why? The reason, it's the Fremen. And we're told about this another Fremen breed coming up. Who are they going to be? I think that's not too sure how long it takes them to turn up, but I think that's pretty much the museum Fremen that we're talking about that we haven't encountered yet. Get a wee sort of sense of some of this stuff from characters like Agarves, for example, who's baby faced, round, water fat, this kind of thing. Everything that's kind of the opposite of the Fremen that we've been told about them up until now. And we get this, as I said, this reminder to Leto from Duncan Idaho's words in the past. The Fremen, they're magnificently alive. I've never met a greedy Fremen. Plenty of greedy Fremen now. But so what's the reason? Is it to save them? Because I'm not too sure, but the Fremen have certainly got something to do with it. A wave of sadness passed over Leto. He was committed to a course which could change all of that, but at a terrible price. And the management of that course became increasingly difficult as they neared the vortex. Kralzek, the typhoon struggle lay ahead. But Kralzek, or worse, would be the price of a misstep. I really want to know what that means. So Kralzek's ahead, the typhoon struggle, that sounds like a given no matter what. But we're told, what if we take a misstep? What if we mess up? What's the consequences of that? Well, the consequences would be Kralzek, same thing, or something worse. And I kind of got the sense that Kralzek was as bad as it could get. Whatever is worse would be the price of the misstep. So he's sad for the Fremen, and they're greedy. And there's a new kind of Fremen coming along soon. And we have to assume that this is something that we've seen within the vision, if you like, Julian was saying, I got to step off. Sorry, y'all. Grad school's busy. See you next week. Bye, Doc. Thanks again. Take it easy, Julian. All the best. Thanks as always. Let's see, jumping back a wee bit there. Just something else to back. Creativity and creation, Julian was saying, is an underground theme in Dune. Creation of ecology, creation of government, of myth, eventually of art. Yes, indeed. You say creation of ecology, planetology is to be this new science, isn't it? Yes, indeed. Creation and evolution. Leto's relationship, Cynthia's saying, Leto's relationship to water is changing. Are humans lonely without water, or lonely in a new way with water? I'm remembering the opening sentences of Moby Dick. I've never read Moby Dick, Cynthia. It's one of my, I've kept it haven't got around to it yet, if you know what I mean. It's meant to be the great novel, that's why. My text says that they were the reason he could not let himself walk away. Right, thank you. Hang on, let's have a wee look. They were the reason he could not let himself walk away into... right, let's have a look here. Number 11. They were the reason he could not let himself walk away into the desert. They were the reason he could not... Sorry, let me see. He could not Yeah, that's my mistake, Cynthia. Thank you very much. I've left out two words there. Let himself. Thank you. Got room to fit them in there nicely. There we go. Thank you very much. Well spotted. I was getting sleepy when I was doing this one earlier. I took a bit of a nap and then finished it. So, thank you very much. Kralzek, the Typhons struggle ahead, but Kralzek, or worse, would be the price of a misstep. It's like saying, it's the greatest battle of all time at the end of the universe. Um, and then there'll be the other one, the one that comes here. The one that's worse. Hang on a minute. What could be worse? Possibly, well, it could be Kralzek, but Kralzek or worse would be the price of a misstep. What could be worse? I suppose it could be extinction. Ultimately, we could consider that, but it's not 100% clear here. Well, it's to do with Fremen. Another Fremen breed was coming up in the wake of Muad'Dib and Alia, though they were the reason he could not let himself walk away into the desert as his father had done. The new Fremen are the reason. It could be out of sympathy, out of guilt. It also could be out of necessity that we can't let this lot take charge. That would be really bad. It could be something like that. Voices, all right. Voices sounded behind Leto, then the clear piping sound of a child speaking. Here he is. Leto turned. The preacher had come out of the palmery, led by a child. Why do I still think of him as the preacher? Leto wondered. The answer lay there on the clean tablet of Leto's mind. Because this is no longer Muad'Dib, no longer Paul Atreides. The desert had made him what he was. The desert and the jackals of Jack Urutu with their overdoses of melange and their constant betrayals. The preacher was old before his time, old not despite the spice, but because of it. They said you wanted to see me now, the preacher said, speaking as his child guide stopped. Leto looked at the child in the palmery, a person almost as tall as himself, with awe tempered by avaricious curiosity. The young eyes glinted darkly above the child-sized stillsuit mask. Leto waved a hand. Leave us. For a moment there was rebellion in the child's shoulders. Then the awe and native Fremen respect for privacy took over. The child left them. So off he goes. Farad'n is here on Arrakis? Leto asked. Gurney told me when he flew down last night. That's the preacher. So there's our first little update, if you like. As much as Ghanima, previous chapter, we've had Buer Agarves out with Stilgar. Ghanima was kidnapped. Here we have Leto with Paul, and we're being told that Gurney's popped in and that Farad'n has now arrived on the planet. So action's moving forward, time's moving forward, tension's building, and the pieces are starting to come together onto the board, if you see what I mean. And of course, with Farad'n here, that's going to mean Jessica as well, isn't it? And probably Tychonic too. Farad'n is here on Arrakis? Leto asked. Gurney told me when he flew down last night. And the preacher thought, how coldly measured his words are. He's like I was in the old days. I face a difficult choice, Leto said. I thought you'd already made all the choices. We know that trap, Father. The preacher cleared his throat. The tensions told him how near they were to the shattering crisis. Now Leto would not be relying on pure vision, but on vision management. What is it? What was it, George? Oh, hang on. Which one would that be? George Bush said, "Is it the vision thing?" I was like that. Not relying on pure vision, but on vision management. Again, I suppose just relating to the problems of prophecy and interpretation that we read in the epigraph there. We know that trap, Father. Yes, indeed. Is that another criticism? Right. Okie dokie. This is punchy dialogue here. I'll probably go pretty quick, folks, you know. Here we go. So this is the preacher. You need my help, the preacher asked. Yes, I'm returning to Arrakeen and I wish to go as your guide. To what end? Would you preach once more in Arrakeen? Perhaps. There are things I've not said to them. Let me just check that I write that down correctly. Bear with me a wee second. Sorry, folks. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I'll read that again. So you need my help, the preacher asked. Yes, I'm returning to Arrakeen and I wish to go as your guide. To what end? Would you preach once more in Arrakeen? Perhaps. There are things I've not said to them. You will not come back to the desert, Father. If I go with you, yes. I'll do whatever you decide. Have you considered, with Farad'n there, your mother will be with him? Undoubtedly. Once more, the preacher cleared his throat. It was a betrayal of nervousness which Muad'Dib would never have permitted. This flesh has been too long away from the old regimen of self-discipline, his mind too often betrayed into madness by the Jacurutu, and the preacher thought that perhaps it wouldn't be wise to return to Arrakeen. You don't have to go back. Sorry, I'll read that again. You don't have to go back there with me, Leto said. But my sister is there, and I must return. You could go with Gurney. And you'd go to Arrakeen alone? Yes, I must meet Farad'n. I will go with you, the preacher sighed. And Leto sensed a touch of the old vision madness in the preacher's manner, wondered. Has he been playing the prescience game? No, he'd never go that way again. He knew the trap of a partial commitment. The preacher's every word confirmed that he had handed over the visions to his son, knowing that everything in this universe had been anticipated. It was the old polarities which taunted the preacher now. He had fled from paradox into paradox. We'll be leaving in a few minutes then, Leto said. Will you tell Gurney? I want Gurney to survive. The preacher opened himself to the tensions then. They were in the air around him, in the ground under his feet, a motile thing which focused onto the non-child who was his son. The blunt scream of his old visions waited in the preacher's throat. And we get Paul's thoughts here. This cursed holiness. It's an interesting ending to this chapter. The sandy juice of his fears could not be avoided. He knew what faced them in Arrakeen. They would play a game once more with terrifying and deadly forces which could never bring them peace. And there we go. They're ready to go once more onto the breach, that kind of thing. They're off to do the final battle. And we get a bit of foreshadowing, a bit of prophecy. Paul's not coming back to the desert from this one. He will not return. And it's still Leto trying to figure out, is he relying on prescient vision? And it seems that he's given himself over completely. This is the proof that I think that Leto needs, that his father's given himself over completely to his vision. But there's a little bit of doubt there just for a moment, I think, with Leto at the end of the chapter there. Has he been playing the prescience game? No, he'd never do that again, that kind of thing. And so yes, he's going to go. Yeah, I'll go with you. And again, his language here, it's acquiescent, doesn't it? Will you do this one more time? Yeah, okay. If I go you, yes, I'll do whatever you decide. Okay, yeah. So that's handing that decision over. Have you considered undoubtedly? I've got a student whose favourite word at the minute is indubitably. He quite likes that one, undoubtedly. It's a very Sherlock Holmes word, isn't it? Indubitably. Um, and we get these sighs and noises from the preacher, from Paul. The suggestion is that I think that the pretense is gone, that the old Paul, the old Muad'Dib would have hid these things no more. He doesn't bother. And I think he doesn't need to hide them in front of his son. Or how is it he puts it here? Where are we? Oh, I just thought there was. Sorry, what am I thinking on? Oh, sorry, no, what was the wee bit I was thinking on? I can't find it. But we also get, yeah, I mean, just the fact that he lets these things slip, the discipline's gone, if you like. I think the suggestion is it's put down to too much of this, too much drugs, too much madness from the Jackaroo, to too much wear and tear on him in general. I'm not finding it because it's on the next page. Yeah, it was the next page. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. He opened himself to the tensions. Then they were in the air around him and the ground under his feet, a motile thing which focused onto the non-child who was his son. A blunt scream of his old visions waited in the preacher's throat. This cursed holiness. Yes, indeed. This cursed religion, this cursed godhood, if you like, you know. Oh, right, hang on. Let's see. Let himself. Yeah, go on, step on. Something in my text says, "Will you tell Gurney? Gurney's not going with us. I want Gurney to survive." You didn't read the second phrase here. Ah, right. Thank you. Hang on. Will you tell Gurney? Where are we? We'll be leaving in a few minutes. Then Leto said, "Will you tell Gurney?" Right. Contact. Bear with me. Find it. No. Question mark. I want Gurney to survive. So you're saying that that's got Gurney's not going with us. I want Gurney to survive. That's what I've got there. So Cynthia, let me see. Oh, let me just bring that up. It looks like I'm missing a sentence. Let's see if you can see it there. There we go. Will you tell Gurney? I want Gurney to survive. So I'm missing something. Gurney's not going with us is immediately before that, I think. Is that right? You didn't read the second phrase here. Will you tell Gurney's not going with us? I better figure out where that is. Hang on, bear with me a wee second. But no, it's not in my copy. Let's have a look. Right, oh, very good. Okay. We'll be leaving in a few minutes then. Leto said, right, will you tell Gurney? Question mark. Gurney's not going with us. Oh, right, that's an entire different sentence there. It's not even, right, I don't have that at all. Right, and that would upset the order of who's talking, wouldn't it? Gurney's not going with us. It's Paul. Right, bear with me, that's not in my copy. So we'll be leaving in a few minutes then. Leto said, will you tell Gurney? Gurney's not going with us. That's Paul talking. Goodness, right. That's a question. Gurney's not going with us. Question mark. Right, because I want Gurney to survive was being Paul. But that is in fact Leto talking, isn't it? I better change that then. Right, goodness. That was a howler. Thank you very much. That one was not my fault. I missed the question mark. It's Gurney's not going with us. Yeah, I've got it now. Thank you. That's all. That entire sentence is missing from my book. And because in a chapter like this, when Frank's got lots of dialogue, I don't know if you can see that of people talking, and it's not he said or they said or Gurney said or Leto said. I kind of do it as a script. So whenever that happened, that we went straight to the next page. The person talking after Leto was Paul. So we've had that's completely changed that for me. So that was Leto saying we'll be leaving in a few minutes. Then Leto said, "Will you tell Gurney?" And Paul saying Gurney's not going with us, and then Leto saying I want Gurney to survive. That's how it should be. Then the preacher opened himself to the tensions. Then they were in the air around him and the ground under his feet, a motile thing which focused onto the non-child who was his son. The blunt scream of his old visions waited in the preacher's throat. This cursed holiness. The sandy juice of his fears could not be avoided. He knew what faced them in Arrakeen. They would play a game once more with terrifying and deadly forces which could never bring them peace, and they know what awaits them. And there's a fair chance that Paul has seen this anyway at some point in the past, has the memory of it. He's no need to play up the prescience game again, if you like. But in terms of how memories work, different actions, different things open up different routes. In this case, he's going with the flow. He's following what Leto's going to do. And that totally changes everything. That to me is when you tell Gurney, when you tell him we're getting ready to go. I'd like him to survive. I read that very differently. But there we go, folks. A few howlers in that one, just in terms of mistakes in the text. But we didn't do too badly there. A lot of that dialogue goes very quickly whenever we read it. But it's a very interesting back and forth between Paul and Leto, and it kind of puts, for us, I think what it does is it solidifies that as much as Leto was taken over, Paul is subservient to Leto now. But what it does solidify for us is that these two Atreides are on the same side, and they're riding out for high noon, if you know what I mean. This kind of thing. But there we go. But yes, indeed, folks. And so the next chapter is the biggie. It really is our major climax, if you like. It's not the full end of the book, but our next chapter for next week is going to be chapter 62, beginning the child who refuses to travel in the father's harness. This is the symbol of man's most unique capability. That's chapter 62. It's a big one, 13 pages. Lots going to happen. And it really is. I said, Frank Herbert's Dune books tend to be a little bit anticlimactic at the very end. We tend to get our climax a little bit just prior to the end of the book, I suppose. But it's going to be a very satisfying chapter, I think. And so we have a little bit of bad foreshadowing here. You will not come back to the desert, Father. This is Paul. This is the last hurrah of Paul Atreides coming up, I think. And to a certain degree, to make sure certain visions happen, to make sure certain things happen. To a degree, it's going to be how would we put it? Theater of, I don't know, mortal theater. Would that be a term that we could use? Theater with the highest consequences. Yes, indeed. And I'll not spoil it, by the way. I know I've read ahead, but I know there's a few people reading along with us for the first time. So we will definitely get there next week. But there you go, folks. Very enjoyable, two quick, punchy little chapters. Unfortunate there, we've had a few bad typos there that really did muck about with the meaning a fair bit, and we had an entire sentence missing. Um, there you go. I don't know. It really does. I think we've had a wee natter about the different types of books that you can get a copy of. I think it's quite important if you're into these books to try and get yourself a decent copy, one of the Berkeleys or something, you know. But by goodness, some of the mistakes are a bit horrendous, aren't they? But nothing life changing or damaging there tonight, you know. So there we go, folks. Goodness, was it Thursday night? Thursday, 18th of September. Where's the time going? That's what I want to know. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap up for tonight, folks. I've got some doggies to go see too. I've had to bring in the doggies' bed. These are the doggies' bunk beds in here. Trying to get them sorted in their different docking stations about the house. But we've very little to go now, folks. Chapter 62 next week, Thursday. Fingers crossed, all being well, at 10 o'clock. Going to be a big chapter. And then we've got a little one following 63 is only 6 pages. Here, hang on, that doesn't look right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. And then we have the final chapter. So 3 weeks to go. And we'll have finished. We'll sort of a 3-year endeavor. We'll have completed the first Dune trilogy. So thank you very much to everybody for your help. That's been really useful this episode. Cynthia, you know, always appreciated for finding the effort into those with the different texts that we work with. I think it's great that we do that. So as always, everybody who checks their texts for these wee mistakes, thank you very much. It's I think it's good that we're all collectively getting the right story read, if you like, in some shape or form. We're all keeping each other right. So Cynthia said, thanks, Doc, and all. Thank you, Cynthia, as always. Schlotted Object, great cheers. Thank you very much indeed, as always. Keep up the strumming. And I'm going to get my guitar strummed. Winter's coming. And Carlos Crisel saying, thank you, sir. And Holly's saying, woof. Is that right, Holly? You saying bye-bye? Go on. Woof, woof. Oh, there she goes. Hang on, my throat's away. That's what I get for speaking doggy. Right, folks. Hopefully we'll see you 10 o'clock next Thursday for chapter 62. It's the biggie. It's a really important. It's the big. Pretty much all of our threads are coming together. All our tensions coming to a head. All of the pieces on the board. All of the action is going to kick off. It's going to be a great chapter next week. I'm really looking forward to it. And we'll be ready for you with Thursday at 10 o'clock. So in the meantime, as always, folks, look after yourselves. Be safe. Take it easy, and we'll see you all real soon. Thanks as always. Take it easy. Bye-bye, folks. Good night. Do 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 ba 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 ba.